Hey, K.O.B.Y leaders, this is Marty McNair, your host of the K.O.B.Y Blueprint, where courage, confidence, and self-advocacy is unleashed. As always, I told you from the beginning, we will always bring you some interesting guests that will make a significant difference in your journey onto the next level of your life. I always ask, do you think you're ready for the next level? But I guarantee you, the more information that you listen to with the K.O.B.Y curriculum and the K.O.B.Y Blueprint podcast, we will almost assure you that you will be more successful than you were prior to. So today's guest is, man, I know we have a interesting relationship, right? Jordan's mentor, and I almost look at you like a little bro, you know what I'm saying, for sure, man.
Yep.
My man, Coach Sule, welcome.
Thank you for having me. So, like Marty said, go way back. I was Jordan McNair's teacher, mentor, coach.
Yep.
So did a lot. Got a lot of history with your family. Obviously, trying to persuade you guys to pick McDonogh.
Yeah.
And grateful for every moment I had.
Yeah. Good stuff. I think for me, what did it was the time I met your mom, right?
Yep.
And bro, like I was telling our our cameraman, I was like, bro, don't look at Coach and think he's like 24.
Yeah. That is true.
So I've watched you evolve from a mentor and all the wonderful things that you just said to a father.
Yep.
With just a journey of life. Not one marriage, but two marriages, right? For sure.
Yep.
2 kids now?
2 kids now.
Yeah,
two
boy and a
kids
girl?
now. Boy and a girl.
Yeah.
Brielle's 3, and then my youngest will be Aiden will be 1 in 2 weeks.
Right. So we remember them being. I remember when hey, you told me they were born the whole 9.
Yeah,
so it's definitely always been some synergy between us. In regards to the work that we do as the foundation, but also just in regards to seeing young people succeed, and it's never been a dull moment between us. So, Coach, one of the main things, man, that really with the K.O.B.Y curriculum, our big thing really is how do we prepare student athletes for the next phase? How do we prepare them mentally? How do we prepare them emotionally? Yeah. How do we prepare them to be successful at the next level? And a lot of our experiences and a lot of our podcast guests basically really just kind of focus on, we like to deal with kids that's in the trenches already, right? Yep. So of course, Uncle Marty, your host, my life is, they can't relate to me beyond, the mission. Yeah. However, but we have college sophomores, college freshmen, college juniors, and college seniors talking about all of the things that we really focus on: peer pressure, where do I fit in, leadership, self-advocacy, and all of this through Jordan's journey for the most part, right? Yeah. But one of the main things that, really, and let me thank you because, for us, giving us the opportunity to even pilot the K.O.B.Y curriculum at the McDonogh School. Yeah. Like, man, that's huge for us. So, I can't really wait to hear all of the participants in the class, or the K.O.B.Y leaders in our class, really what their feedback is, because we learn so much from them, right?
100%.
So, one of the big things for us is mental health awareness, right? But even bigger thing that I think that a lot of times, even with myself, and I'm sure, my family was no more different than any other family when it comes to this particular topic. We discussed, and which we're excited about, we just added financial literacy to the K.O.B.Y curriculum, right? And you are a financial literacy teacher, right? Yeah, so, really, man, like the floor is yours, because, nowadays with student athletes and NIL deals and all these types of things, man, and, I can almost remember, for me, I learned from a what not to do perspective, right? So like a lot of, people that, you may be in college, I don't know if this was your experience or not, but I can remember going to the student union, and I don't know who the credit card company was, and they're saying, hey, we'll give you this $500 credit card, 100%, right? And it's like, all right, you give me $500 worth of credit, right? Yep. I don't have any money to start with, right? Exactly. My mom's sending me money, or my family's sending me some money, and you saying I can buy something now, but I don't have to pay later? I ain't got to pay until later. Yeah, it sounds good, but I had no idea what that meant, what it looked like, what the actual the interest rate was,
Yep.
right?
Oh, yeah,
All of the things that when you're older, you make life decisions based off of these things.
Yep.
So I'm not going to take the shot or take the floor.
Yeah.
You know, it's you, man. So
Yeah.
you know, let's talk about the basics of financial literacy.
Of course, and then just a little bit of background before we get into it.
Sure.
Obviously, you know, I went to the McDonogh, graduated in 2005, and then I played football at the University of Maryland.
Got it.
And walked on, earned a scholarship.
Right.
And then afterwards, came back, started teaching and coaching. And like you mentioned earlier, was married before. Married young at the age of 25, married my college sweetheart, got a divorce, didn't work out, life happens. Remarried, and then started this journey where I'm teaching, coaching, now I'm the head coach at McDonogh, and then also teaching financial literacy. And I bring those points up to say all of those decisions, all of those actions and things that happen in my life all have financial implications to it. And so I don't have all the answers, but I'm on this journey, as we all should be, to become more financially literate, okay? So we can make well-informed decisions in the future. And so me teaching this class and then helping young student athletes learn about their finances, learn about making well-informed decisions. That's kind of the path I'm on now, and it's been a blessing. I've learned from students, and I'm continuing to learn myself. I don't have all the answers, but the one thing I'll do is, do my own research, and then obviously ask for help and ask for advice. And so what kind of led me to this journey is, remember I said I walked on in the University of Maryland. So when I graduated from Maryland, I had about $25,000 in debt from student loans. And I didn't walk in a situation where my family was going to pay that bill for me. So it was hey son, congratulations, you just graduated from college. Here's your bill, $25,000, figure it out. So at the time I said, okay, I'm here with a $25,000 bill. Wait, what do I do? I'm just getting a job. That was going to be my main source of income, only making $30,000 a year. And so I think, okay, all right, $25,000. All right, I want to start investing. I'm reading magazines. I'm reading something. I want to get into the stock market. So the next thing I did at the age of 22 is I walked into Beth Rosenwald. I'll never forget. She was a parent here at McDonogh, very successful financial advisor, manager. And I walked in. I said, hey, I'm ready to invest. What do I need to do? And she looked me right in the eye and said, son, I'm glad you came by, but you don't make enough money to invest with me. She said, the best thing you could do is pay off your debts. And so that started my financial journey. Because at that moment I was hot. I was like, well, I got 30,000, and to me, I didn't know what 30,000 really meant back at that time. And I just figured, hey, I got my first check. I'm ready to set it all. I'm ready to start making millions now. I thought, hey, I could throw my salary into the stock market. Somehow, some way, and make me rich right away. And that wasn't the case. She said, so she threw out some numbers at me, started talking about rates, and said, look, the best thing you can do right now is educate yourself. And that started my financial journey because I grew up like most people. We didn't talk about finances in the household. And it was because of two things. Lack of education, right? My family didn't grow up knowing about what's out there, what we have at our disposal. And another thing was we didn't have the money, right? So, for us, when we started talking about stock markets, it was a place for your money to go and burn. Hey, I'm not throwing my money, that thing crash. And it will crash every now and then, but that's not a bad thing because, if you look at the history of the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500, there's been more green years than there have been red years. And so when we talk about young student athletes, most times they don't know that. They don't know the basics, right? They come out of college, whether they have debt or they do have a little bit of money, where to go next. And, understanding just the basics as it relates to financial literacy, how to budget, how to invest, how to save, the discipline behind money can really help shape their future.
So funny story, man. I got a similar story as well. I was just telling you before we started, really I felt really good about what you told me, how we hit our peak right when I was supposed to hit that financial peak of financial success at 46, right? And like you, I saved 10 grand and I'm ready to, I'm ready to go ahead and set it off.
Yep.
And, I went to my now financial advisor, and luckily he just was very interested, a McDonogh, shout out to my man, Sam Miliano. And I went to Sam and I said, hey, Sam, I got 10. I'm ready to invest this 10.
Yep.
And he said, man, you know what? He started talking to me about, like put buckets, like have 6 months worth of income in the event of, like, put your money in buckets. And that's what Sam really started talking to me about, right? But like you, I'm like, man, you ain't gonna take my 10 grand because again, I never really had a full comprehension of, financial literacy, right? And a lot of times, like most people, I learned the hard way. And again, the whole purpose of K.O.B.Y is to, the K.O.B.Y curriculum and the K.O.B.Y podcast is for you to learn these things or get some type of experience of these things prior to the actual experience, some information from a preventive perspective, because these are all things that we want to deal with, that young people want to deal with. You're going to have to learn how to handle your finances somewhere along the way, regardless of how wealthy your family may be, or what your generational wealth, or you may have just a regular mom and dad that's just making some super duper sacrifices for your success, along the way. And nowadays, I think that when you talk about, the state of collegiate sports and the state of NIL money and all these types of things, where, I think the worst thing you can do is give a kid a whole lot of money. Because, mentally, they're still a kid, right? And, I think that even for me, when we look at, or just people in general, nobody thinks to say that, oh, I'll be here. We had a conversation about this before. I'll be 50 one day. You ain't trying, you can't comprehend that at 18. I'll be 55 one day, or I'll be 40 one day. Like all you probably see is the right now.
Right now. And the saying is pay yourself first.
Correct.
And
I've heard that a bunch of times.
The misconceptions when you pay yourself first is I get money and I need to go and treat myself, take care of myself first.
Of course.
But the saying really, what it really entails is when you pay yourself first, you're paying for your future self. So when you get the money or whatever it is, your income, you want to make sure that you are setting it off to the side. So by investing, or saving, but primarily want to be investing,
right,
to pay for what's to happen, what's to occur in the future.
Correct.
And so, I talk about those experiences being at a young age, right? I could have done a lot more, as we all could have at a young age, because the beauty about being young is you have time.
Yep.
The older you get, that time starts to go away. And so you want to make sure through investing at an early age with time, right? There's a thing called compound interest, right? Earn money on your interest, right? So as you're earning that money, you allow it to grow, and only time will allow it to exponentially grow. Got it.
So, man, really our viewers basically come from a variety of different backgrounds, right? So everybody may not be at a McDonogh School.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Or their family may not have the resources to send them here. So we'll deal with, young people that may be, in the public school space or whatever the case may be. But financial literacy 101 applies to everyone, for sure. So, what are some of the basics that, you tell a young person? And these are, nowadays, even when you look at, like for me, and I can use me as a prime example of, when we start talking about student loans and stuff like that, that's the one loan that the government will not let you escape from, right?
Will not, no.
Because again, it's not up to them. Okay, we gave you the money. It's not our fault you didn't do what you were supposed to do with it. You know what I mean? So if you didn't get the degree or what we loaned you the money for, but again, it's kind of challenging to tell a 18-year-old or a 17-year-old or a 19-year-old this when there's been no education around this period. So what's your chime in on that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is understanding debt and loans in general, whether it's student loans, car loan, we talked about that before, credit card, it's still borrowed money, which essentially means it's not your money. The debt is, you're gonna have to pay back that, but the money that's given to you is given to you as a, you owe me later. So whenever we sign up for student loans, credit cards, car loans, those sorts of things. We got to make sure we understand that, hey, this money really isn't directly ours right away. It's borrowed money, and eventually we're going to have to pay it back. But there's a little thing called interest where we're going to have to pay some more. So basically, it's a penalty for me. If you come to me and say, hey, Coach Sule, I need some money. I say, okay, yeah, I'm going to lend you money, but hey, for you using my money and the time that it take, whatever you decide to do with my money, I'm going to charge you a little bit extra to give it back to me, and that's called the interest.
Correct.
So you got to understand, first thing is whenever any amount that you borrow, okay, whether it's student loans, credit cards, car loans, even the mortgage, that's borrowed money. It belongs to the bank, and it belongs to whoever has issued you that money or loaned you that money. And so you got to understand when we sign up for these things, okay, hey, what are the parameters set? Hey, how much time do I have to pay it off? What's the interest rate? Because now I think a lot of people are becoming aware with the housing market, with the interest rate. Yeah. The higher that rate is, the higher you're going to have to pay back and borrow money. Yep. And so just making yourself aware of that. I know you had mentioned earlier about, you walking through a shop and somebody say, here's a credit card. You know what? That's how I got my first credit card. I was walking through an airport and a joker said, hey, you want a free chessboard? I said, well, what do I got to do? He said, hey, just sign on this paper and then you can walk away with this chessboard. So I said, okay, that's a good looking chessboard. I'll sign up. Next thing you know, I get an American Express credit card in my mail 2 weeks later. And I didn't know what that meant. I was 18 years old with a credit card. And all I know was, hey, look, I'm going to spend and then I'll pay back the minimum payments, and then I can still use my credit card to buy more and more stuff. But what did that find me in a couple of years? I was $2,500 in the hole with credit card debt. So I said, okay, all right, well, hold on. Now I'm noticing the trend here. All right, hey, I'm paying the monthly payments, the minimum payments, but I'm not really knocking off the principal balance, in which the original loan amount that I borrowed. So when we talk about financial literacy, especially for young kids, student athletes, we just got to make sure we're aware of the debt that we're taking on, and then being understand like, hey, where's the money coming in as it relates to how am I going to pay these things back? Got it. Because obviously there's some materialistic things, right? What are we doing with these purchases at a young age? And it's nice to take care of yourself and treat yourself every once in a while. But having an understanding of, hey, what's the money that's coming in? What's the money that's going out? And how am I going to actually pay off these debts? And so the earlier we can start informing ourselves, becoming well aware of those decisions, then you'll be able to take control and make sure you don't find yourself in a financial pitfall. And I think that's one of the most important things for young student athletes to know, and young students in general, is when you talk about financial literacy, how do I give myself the knowledge and skills to make well-informed decisions about how I spend money, how I borrow money?
How important is discipline when it comes to that? Because, even the older we get, it's like, everything that just because, it's so, like, I'm sure that, I don't know if our listeners have heard, but, a lot of times it's almost the equivalent of that phrase, money burns a hole in your pocket.
Yes, money can burn a hole in your pocket. And so, we got to make sure at a young age that we, obviously, if we weren't taught these skills, we do everything in our power to learn them, and that starts with the discipline, as you mentioned. So discipline is everything. Being able to create a budget, stick to a budget, be able to invest, and then make sure, hey, we stay on track, stay on task. And that's why it's good to not only be financially literate, but to also have financial goals. And so understanding, hey, if I want something, hey, I can get it, but it might take a little bit of time. I don't need to rush to buy something, right? Or then asking yourself a question, hey, do I really need it? One thing I do that really helps in terms of having discipline, if it's something over $100, I ask myself, hey, maybe I need to sleep on it before I make another decision, before I go ahead and make that purchase. Let me give it a night. And if I feel like I still want it the next day, hey, I'll go and get it. But if not, that kind of helps. So like having different strategy, that's the discipline we talk about. Putting you in a space where you feel good about making these financial decisions and making these purchases or making these investments as well.
Got it. So even when you talk about that $100 thing, you know, and the interesting thing is, you know, when we can get out of impulsive buying, you probably, you know, once it kind of passes, it's just like, you know what, I really,
and we've all been there. We've all made purchases, even today. I'm not going to act like I'm holy in it now.
Yeah, of course, we still do.
You know, when it comes to discipline, you know, I'm a little bad when it comes to the Grubhub and Chipotle. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I got food at home. Do I really need to make this purchase at Chipotle?
Right.
When I know I can go home and eat for free $99.
Right.
You know, but sometimes, you know, that's just the ego, you know, kicking in there.
That's the reality for many of us, just the convenience of it.
The convenience, yes.
So now, when we talk about, let's say, even though, and this is for, you know, really any student that's listening, but, you know, since our audience is student athletes, you know, a lot of times with student athletes, man, most of them don't ever get a job. Because sports, and if you come from any type of family where, because you can't do both. You can't play sports full time and go to work part time.
It's hard.
It's like almost impossible.
And a lot of our student athletes today, you talk about their schedule.
Sure, of course.
They've been training since a young age. That's all they know. And so they might be able to get an internship here and there. But you know, the higher you go on level, that time commitment just eats up all any opportunity you have to work a job. And so, you know, not only do you fall behind as it relates to the workplace when you're done doing athletics, but when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to say, okay, hey, where's that income going to come from?
Sure.
And so, you know, the only income for a lot of student athletes might be a per diem, right? I know it's a new wave coming in with NIL. That's going to be reserved for the top. You know, we'll talk about that. But obviously, for those who don't have it, hey, how can I get started? How can I start investing? What can I do? And so that might be the time where you don't have a lot of money, but that might be the time that you start doing your research. Start gathering knowledge. You start putting yourself in a place where, okay, all right, when I do have it, all right, I know what I'm going to do with it.
Got it.
And so that might be the right time to start building that discipline, especially if, you know, you find yourself, right, without getting a monthly allowance from your parents in college.
Course,
you know, all you got is your free tuition.
Sure.
Some of us might not even have free. Some of us might be paying our way, still doing the sport,
waiting on the refund check, right?
Or taking out student loans on the side to supplement the financial aid grant we've been given towards college. So at that time, if you don't have a lot of money, obviously it's going to be hard to do a lot of things. But what you can do is start giving yourself the discipline, start you know, gaining that knowledge. So when it does come, you're prepared for it.
Sure. I think nowadays, man, really when you look at, you know, especially student athletes, and we have this thing that, you know, obviously wasn't around when I was around, which is social media, right? So, you know, like you have so many different outside influences that, like, man, you know, you see rappers nowadays and you see, you know, all we see is just the bling, right? You know, whether that's all we see is highlight, the highlight reel, right? We just see fruit. We don't see no labor, right? So therefore, we think that all this stuff is attainable, you know, because folks is, you know, especially, you know, really social media wise, like, you know, everybody got the latest cars, and me and you just had that conversation about cars, you know, about vehicles, and man, all these different things versus, you know, it's always that I've seen like a couple memes where the person with money, right, the wealthy person you wouldn't even know, right? The person that, you know, that doesn't have the money is the ones that have all of the bling on, all of the flash on, versus they're living in the right now, versus this person is probably, like you say, you know, paying themselves, you know, in regards to compound interest or where I may be later down the line versus right now.
And that's the tough part about social media, and I express it to my students all the time, and you just mentioned it, right? When you look at a timeline story, nobody's going to show you a picture of the lowlights. It's always the highlights, whether it's, you know, vacation, travel.
Absolutely right.
Going out there, and what that creates is kind of a herd mentality. And when I mean herd mentality, is that people tend to follow the herd, right? Follow the masses, and it's the bandwagon effect. So when those things happen, you know, it's easy for me to look at something and say, oh man, wow, you know, I need that, or I want that, or I don't have that. But we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? A snapshot of a 30-second image or a video can present, you know, a lot of happiness, but you know, it's a lot of time in a 24-hour day, and so we don't get to see what's going on. And this
Right.
goes back to the whole mental health thing.
Yep.
Behind the scenes, it's like, hey, somebody could paint a picture, they could have everything in the world.
Yeah.
But then behind the scenes, we don't know what they're mentally going through, the
absolutely.
challenges, the struggles.
Absolutely.
We don't even see the debt.
Yeah.
Because it could be a mountain of debt.
Yep.
That is the reason why somebody's blinged out in a nice Range Rover,
Sure.
or taking trips around the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
or has the latest sneakers. We don't know what it cost. Was it their money?
Right.
Was it borrowed money?
Exactly.
Being a loan that
Right.
belongs to the bank.
Right.
We don't see those things. So obviously the peer pressure it's tough. It's tough when you look at it in social media, but that's where, when we talk about financial literacy, understanding that, and then once you have that discipline, you'll be content with what works for you. Because, the financial journey, we talked about this at the beginning, just the journey. This is what we're all on, a lifelong journey. And, we need to be all lifelong learners.
Yep.
And that's why you're here at the K.O.B.Y Institute, watching us talk about it, because this journey never ends.
Yep.
And life hits you, and whenever it comes, being financially literate will help you be prepared for those pitfalls when life happens.
Yep. Because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's definitely.
It's going to happen.
Hey, listen to this. It is definitely going to happen for sure.
It's definitely
Probably
gonna happen.
least when you least expect it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then even this situation here that brought us together with
Yeah.
Jordan. Those things. That's something I think about now as a father.
Yep.
And I think that's probably when you talk about the synergy, because for you out there, I was beside bed when Jordan passed away. Spoke at his funeral.
Yeah, man.
And for me, man, it just gives you a whole perspective of just how life happens, and when it does happen, what are the financial implications when those events happen in
Totally
life?
agree. Totally agree. It's and again, just in regards to life, my dad had some health issues during COVID, and man, he wasn't the most prepared. He had more of a right now mentality in a sense. And, you might think that, oh man, I got, 20, 30 grand in the bank, get sick. Yeah. That's 3 months worth of care.
100%.
Gone just like that.
100%.
3 months worth of care. Now this may be, if everything is all right, this may be, but I mean, when it comes to being in a position where somebody has to take care of you and all that type of stuff, it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
Extremely expensive.
And, we live in a society where really, when you get older, other cultures, hey, you're welcome with open arms to go back in the household, your kids to take care of you. Here in America, it's a little bit different. Right? So the people who tend to need the most care in our society are toddlers. Young adolescents, like yourselves, and then student athletes, and then obviously the older people. And anyone in between, you're kind of on your own, fending for yourself. So student athletes, that you're watching this, you got to understand, you're on the brink of that. You're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. On the other side of this, now it's a whole world of life, bills,
you got 40
responsibility.
You got 40 years to be responsible before the reality of somebody may have to take care of you. 40 years. And it seems like a long time, but it's not. It's not. It goes by quick. Extremely quick, for sure. So, Coach, let me ask you this. We look at the whole landscape of student athlete. Monies have changed drastically in the last 2 years. Significant last 3 years. And you have, somebody that may have an NIL deal. You ain't but so many pairs of sneakers you can buy, ain't but so many pair of Cartier glasses you can buy, right? So many chains you can purchase, or whatever the case may be. I'm gonna give a prime example. I was listening to Charles Barkley, right? And this is an older basketball player, a great basketball player that played with the 76ers, Philadelphia 76ers. And Dr. J is an even older basketball player. Some of you all may not have known, but listen to the analogy and the message. And when Charles Barkley was young, he's playing with the Sixers. He must have been a rookie. And Dr. J kind of pulled him up and said, man, how many cars you got? He's like, I got 6. How many houses you got? Oh, I got this. And he said, well, why you need all? You can only drive one car at a time. And, Barkley said, he had the mentality that he would play basketball for the rest of his life. Right? And in reality, that's not the case. Now, luckily, he made it to, being a commentator on TNT or whatever the case, him and Shaq and a couple other guys. But that was the mentality, like, I'm going to have this money the rest of my life. It's a book. I don't know, since we were talking about books earlier, have you ever read Not For Long?
No,
The life and career of an NFL athlete?
No, but I've seen documentaries and not read the book.
Right,
yeah.
Dr. Robert Turner. So actually, Dr. Robert Turner, he wrote a excerpt on the back of Can My Child Play, right? And man, his book talks about, he follows student football players from the high school, pre-NIL, right? All the way to college, to the NFL, and no player in the NFL left it's very few that left at their own will. Yeah. Like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and retire. Yep. Everybody got that call in the office and say, hey, you know what? We don't need your services no more. Yep. Nobody was prepared for that. Yeah. And every single, and the percentages of guys that could just say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and retire. Yep. Very, very small. Yeah. Very small. Very small. You know, when you talk about guys playing in the NFL and, I probably met more NFL players in the last 6 years than, a little bit, but talking to guys, it's like, hey man, how long was you? I played with such and such, I played with them. Well, how long was you in the league? I was talking to a guy the other day, played with 3 NFL teams. He played 4 years. He didn't even get a pension. Nope. You know what I mean? So young people think that even just in regards to Kobe in general, the ball is going to stop bouncing one day. It will. You are going to get tired of this to say maybe sooner than later, and our goal is to prepare you for when you decide to do that.
And student athletes can prepare for that moment. I mean, I knew when my last few seconds was out, we were playing Boston College, and I looked at my teammate who did go on to play professional ball with the CFL, and Michael Carter, and I looked him right in his eyes and said, Mike,
I'm done, bro.
I said, I got 10 seconds left. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, I've been playing this sport since 5 years old. It's over. And he's like, man, you kidding. I remember when he said after kidding, I said 3, 2, 1. I was like, it's over, Mike. That's it.
You're done.
That was it. That was it. That was the end of my playing career.
You're done.
So,
wow.
I prepared for that moment.
Sure.
The most important thing we can all do is, in young student athletes, is prepare for it when it happens to you, because it will stop.
Stop right there, Coach. So basically, man, we're going to do this in 2 episodes, but as Coach just said, eventually it's going to stop one day. And this is part 1 of the financial literacy episode. And hey, stick around and follow us for part 2 of the K.O.B.Y Blueprint podcast, Courage, Confidence, and Self-Advocacy Unleashed. See you for part 2. Take care.